Vela, a constellation. The constellation of Vela is known as the Sail, and is sometimes shortened to just Vel. The constellation is best seen from January to March, and it's visible in the southern hemisphere. Even though Hawaii is pretty far north and not necessarily in the southern hemisphere, you can still find Vela in the March sky by looking directly south and finding it above the constellation of Carina. It borders Antilla and Pyxis to the north, Puppis to the northwest, and Centaurus to the east. Let's hear a little bit about the stars in the constellation. Suhail is one of the largest stars in the system, and it's actually a multiple star system. One star is a supergiant while the other is a massive wolf riot star. And the star itself is blue and 336 light years away. Delta Velarum is an A-type main sequence star, and it actually appears white-blue with a surface temperature of 9,470 degrees Kelvin, and it's only 80.6 light years away. On the other hand, Lambda Velarum is an orange giant supergiant with surface temperatures reaching up to 4,000 degrees Kelvin, and that is a whopping 545 light years away. The constellation also has Kappa Velarum, a subgiant blue-white star, with a distance of 572 light years from our solar system, and temperatures reaching less than 3,500 degrees Kelvin. Mu Velarum, not related at all to the baseball coach of a similar name, is a giant yellow and main sequence binary star system, so it's composed of two separate stars, and it is actually only 117 light years away compared to those previous stars that we just saw, like Kappa Velarum, 500 light years away. N Velarum is another star in the constellation. It's an orange giant, and it is 239 light years away. The constellation was discovered and recorded in the 2nd century by Ptolemy, a Greek, back when Vela was part of the constellation Argo Navis, and Frenchman Nicolas Louis de Lacaille was the one who actually turned the Argo Navis constellation into 3 separate constellations: Vela, Carina, and Puppis. Vela means the sails in Latin, as it was once part of the Argo Navis constellation, a ship. The constellation looked like the ship Argo, which was sailed by Jason and the Argonauts, a group of heroes, when Jason was trying to get the Golden Fleece in Greek mythology. The Argo Navis ship was named after Argus, the builder, and was partly built with the help of Athena. After Jason returned successfully after departing a Greek island, the ship was granted to Poseidon and was then made into a constellation. Now, the constellation itself belongs to the Heavenly Waters constellation family. Interestingly, the constellation also includes notable space objects like the 8-Burst Nebula, the Vela Pulsar, and the Vela Supernova Remnant, among other things. Let's hear about Vela, the Zimbabwean elephant. In a place far from home in the country of Zimbabwe, there is a region called Matabele Land. This is a place like no other, a place where droughts are abundant and water is short. In the United States, we have land of all types, but Matabele Land's land is different from ours, being dry and rough. The indigenous people of Matabele Land have been known for centuries to care for all sorts of wildlife, both animal and plant species, from the endemic birds to the trees, some of which crack during the heat of summer. In recent years, the world has continued to evolve with modern societies, and phones have been abundant in the villages surrounding the region, yet the Matabele Land villagers' way of life has not changed. In the 2000s, they continued to teach neighboring regions about their traditional practices, especially the act of caring for the wildlife that they know were in the region long before they came to be. Foreigners may call the region of Matabele Land a place to be on the set of Jurassic Park, or even an alien planet, for the landscape is stark and the polar opposite of what we have in America. But for the indigenous tribes and the wild animals that live in Matabele Land, the region is, simply put, home. Earlier this year, the Matabele Land people celebrated the birthday of the longest living African savanna elephant. Her name was Vela, which in the Ndebele language of the region means royal guardian. Vela was a very large elephant and known to follow the villagers around when they were completing tasks. She was always helpful, villagers said, as she would outstretch her trunk whenever the villagers were in need of assistance for transporting goods. She would also spray water from her trunk on any villager's command. Most importantly, Vela was the most beloved elephant of her region, partly out of her age. Turning 64 at the beginning of this year, she outlived every other elephant that was born during her time. In addition, she survived while other elephants were killed by poachers. Of anything, Vela's act most renowned in the region was her defense of the village a decade ago. In the dark of the night in 2007, a large caravan made of many extremists armed with RPGs and grenades broke through the fence of the largest village of the region. Vela, who was a quarter of a mile away, heard the caravan approaching long before they reached the fence, and met the extremists just as they were getting out of their trucks. The villagers recount, to this day, the look of fear on the extremists' faces as they locked their trucks and left the village and the region in a hurry. They were never seen again. From that night on, Vela was praised and hailed as the greatest elephant of the region. Sadly, a month ago, Vela was killed. Lately, more poachers have been flowing into the region from all different parts of the globe. Thrill seekers from Europe, Asia, and the Americas traveled in hordes to have fun hunting for animals, despite the fact that most of the animals were protected by Zimbabwe law. The villagers began to become worried as well. Bribed by the tourist industry, they showed hospitality to all the visiting poachers but knew that it was morally incorrect. Eventually, it was Vela who was hunted in the dead of night, even though the villagers warned against killing the protector of the region. With multiple gunshot wounds, she was slain, and the poachers flew back to South America with the tusks of Vela as trophies of the hunting trip. Those killers of Vela have not been found. In the village which was once protected by Vela, the villagers mourned the loss of the longest living elephant. Throughout the region, altars were made in honor of Vela. However, the damage had been done. Vela was dead and she wouldn't live again. As the story of Vela spread, a group of priests from Montebello land gathered to pray with the villagers of the region. The villagers' last wish was for future generations to remember the story of Vela and her importance in Zimbabwe. On the night of the prayers, over 1,000 villagers and over 50 priests stood outside with candles. Looking up in the sky of the southern hemisphere, one priest picked out a group of stars that resembled the ear of Vela the elephant. Word spread, and soon the entire group standing outside on that night knew that Vela would always be with them for several months of the year, listening to them with her ear. The story of these villagers spread quickly on African news channels and on social media, where the world began to know of Vela the elephant. You, too, may have heard of Vela's name. But now you know how the constellation of Vela was named and how a group of just a few stars meant and still means so much to those so far away in Montebello land, Zimbabwe. She may be dead, but her legacy lives on.